Welcome back to the Crochet Crowd. So my friends at yarnspirations.com. I'm your host Mikey. Today we're going to work on the Crochet Floral Fun Motif ball toy. And what we're going to do is that we're going to make this toy from start to finish. I've already done most of the work off camera and I'm going to show you what that's going to be. I am going to deviate in the pattern. I'm going to show you whip stitching for the motifs. You can do the flat stitch join if you wish. I found it was a lot harder for me than I really wanted to do, so I substituted by doing a whip stitch to join them together. So you'll notice that it requires 6 balls, and these are the large format of the Bernat blanket baby blanket yarn. And what this is that when you use all 6 of these, you're going to actually get out 3 balls of this, so like 3 actual finished balls that you see. So it's a neat idea. So you can look at your collection of yarn and determine if you have it or not. For myself, I decided to use, and let me just back you out on the camera here, I decided to use Bernat baby blanket sparkles. So my yarn has a bit of sparkle to it, so it's really awesome. And so I've been just playing with that, and I substituted my colors, and I have a really cute formation of the starting of this. So it looks like a turtle, but once it gets full you're gonna see that its 3-dimensional look is going to happen, and it's gonna be wonderful. And so what we need to do is create 2 halves. So let's talk about the number of motifs and actually the color format itself. Welcome to my channel, and I'm here to inspire you, give you crochet advice, and help you along with your next project. If you enjoyed this pattern, please give me a thumbs up or even comment so I can gauge your interest. It helps me to know what to film next. So back to the pattern we have a total of 12 motifs. 6 are one color format and 6 are another. If you want to be random in your colors you can do so, but I do highly recommend that the last round of each one of your motifs be the same color, so it just looks consistent. So when you go to put it together, it looks like it actually belongs together. So what I have here is that color, this one, motif A. I substituted, so I write on the pattern what I'm substituting my colors for, and then the other 6 here. I found that these motifs are really fast to make. I did the motifs over 2 Harry Potter movies, which was awesome. And the pattern actually has a crochet diagram that is on page number 2. And on page number 2 you can also see the schematic on how things are done. So in this one here, the motif number 1 is the center, and motif 2 are the 5 that go around. And in this one here, motif 2 is the center and motif 1 are going around. And once you'll be able to put them together, then you can put the 2 halves together like so. So let me show you that, and then we're gonna be diving right into how to do one of these. And we are going to need a 6mm size J crochet hook in order to play. So here are my 2 halves. I've already sewn this one together. On the inside, when I finished off yarn, I just tied it so that I'm just gonna leave the tail on the inside of the ball. Maybe not so professional looking, but once this gets sealed you're never gonna see it, so I'm not gonna waste my time. So here what happens is that when you follow the diagram work itself, it shows you the layout on how you're going to put things together. So I put my first motif down, and then I put my other ones around it. So I put the first motif down, and then I just use spare yarn, and I just go around the corner pieces and I join it. So I join this one, and this one to form the 3 together, and then I just join this one. This allows me, when I'm going to sew, not to get confused on where I'm joining, and as I'm joining then I will remove those out as I go, so it becomes a lot easier. And on the interior like so, you can see that you have all the loose ends that are on the inside. So this is our goal, to be able to put that together, and we're gonna be covering that in a little bit, but first I think we need to create a motif and show you how that's done first. So one last note that I'm gonna leave you. We are using a much smaller hook than what has been suggested for the yarn itself. So usually when we use Bernat blanket, it's about 8mm to 10mm hook, which is either an L or an M, or an N as in Nancy. And what you want to do, this is amigurumi format, so they're having us change our hook to be much smaller. My point for telling you this is that somebody's gonna email me and say, I wish that you would have done this with Red Heart Super Saver or Karen 1 pound in the medium number weight yarn. You can do it. The difference will be, though, you will want to change your hook down to at least a 4mm size G6, and if you want to do that you're gonna end up with a much smaller ball. I don't know what the size of that ball is gonna be, but it will actually help compress the yarn so that you can have a very similar look. So that compression of yarn, I'm not sure how big the ball is gonna end up being, so if you ever do that, just leave us a comment. We'd love to know. So we're gonna get started right away, and I'm not gonna be using white on camera, even though I have white on my sample, because white on a white background makes it invisible. Let's begin our journey now. As we get started, I'm an assembly line crocheter, so I know that there's 12 motifs and there's gonna be 6 in one color format and 6 of another. So what I like to do is that every time there's a color change, I like to stop and do all the motifs to that particular point with their respective little colors. So for example, what I'm about to do here, chain 1 and do the first, and then round 1 where we're gonna change the color, I would do the round 1 for all of the motifs. So I'll have 6 of one color, 6 of another before moving on to round number 2. I find it's a lot easier to remember the pattern, and that's something that you can decide for yourself. Let's begin. To begin, we're going to chain 4. And to do that, you just put it onto the hook. It's gonna be tight. That's the whole point of this one. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now let's begin round number 1. The 4th chain from the hook, which is the very starting right down here where I'm pointing with my thumb, is that we want to put in 9 double crochets there. So with this chain here and the 9, it gives you a total count of 10 double crochets around. You're going to notice it's going to pucker. So that's, but you want that. That's what's creating this look. So yarn over and double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook over there. And once you get the first time, it's easy to see the remaining. So what I would do in your head is that this chain 3 that we just skipped over, count that as 1, 2, and you want a total of 10. So you'll do the next one, and so that will be number 3 for double crochet. Go right up over top of the straggler. So if it's in the way, just crochet right over it. Okay, this is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. What I would want to do, if you weren't watching me, which I did do, is that I take one of these posts and I count to make sure there's actually 10 that matters. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Once you have the 10th, you are going to slip stitch to the top of the chain 4 that you started with, and that's the end of this color. So you will want to do all your 12 motifs to this point and see how it's kind of puckering as I promised. And I want to just trim this yarn, but what I want to do is that I want to make sure that it ties itself. So just coming through and it kind of ties. And if you just want to weave an end through, just through somewhere in the back side just to keep it consistent. So I'm looking at the inside. Just take the yarn strand through and just allow it to tie onto itself. And then you can just safely, I wouldn't cut them right down to the wick, but just cut them shorter, and those will be on the inside of the ball. And so this is the right side of your project. So this is round number 1 for all of them, and so just do whatever you want with the colors, and we're moving on to round number 2 next. Let's begin round number 2. Create a slip knot that helps tie it onto itself, and round number 2 and 3 are going to be the same color. Okay, so we're not gonna fasten off at the end of round number 2. And what we need to do is that we need to put our fingers in between any of the posts. So we're not worrying about the tops of the stitches at all. We're focusing on the spaces between posts. Again, this is gonna compress it. And I want you to stick your hook on the right side of the project through with this already on, and just yarning over and pulling it through and tighten it up. And let the straggler fall to the other side. Now I want you to chain 3, which will count as your first double crochet, and in the same spot I want you to put in 3 more double crochet. So with the chaining of 3 in these 3, that will give you the chain count, that will give you the double crochet count of 4. So each one of these spaces that I'm gonna fill in is going to always have 4 double crochets. This is the base of the petal. To put the next one in, I want you to just use your fingers and separate it out, and see there's a post that's after this space, and there's another post that's after that space, and right here is going to be your next shell here of 4 double crochets. So just skip 2 double crochets and going into the space that's after that and put in 4 double crochets. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So where's the next one? So there is the double crochet after the space. So 1 and 2, and essentially there's 2 double crochets between each one of the petals. Okay, and each petal is made up of 4 double crochets. So please do this all the way around. I'll see you back here in a moment, and if your counts are right, there should always be 2 of these double crochets between each petal, and I'll be right back in a moment. A note that I want to make a mention of it. So we had the chain 4 that started this. It always looks slightly different, but count it as a post, right? So that's nothing new, and it always looks a little bit different, but in this case it hides really well because of the yarn. Okay, so just play with it and go. And so I should be able to count 5 groups of these 4 double crochets. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and see there's 2 double crochets before the next one, so that means I'm done. So I'm just going to slip stitch to the top of the chain 3, and that was the end of round number 2. So if it were me and I were you, I would do the next round before moving on to your next motif, because you gotta use the same color anyway. So if you have to cut this color to move it to the next one, don't worry about it yet, just hold, and we'll move on to number 3 now. Okay, number 3, just like we were between double crochets here, number 3 we're gonna do the same thing, but we have groups of 4, and we have to slam ourselves in between the 2 double crochets that are in the center of the grouping of 4. So to get over there first, because we're just starting, we're gonna go into the next space. Okay, it's not a stitch, just go in the next space, slip stitch. This is almost impossible to see, which is awesome. And then you're gonna come into the next space, which will be the center here of the petal, and that's where the story is going to begin. So right when we're there, we're going to chain a total of 3. So 1, 2, 3. So that's 1 double crochet out of 7. So I would say this is 1, and then go into the same space for 2, and keep adding until you get 7. So we have 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So you have a total of 7 double crochets in there. So to go and do the next grouping of 7, you have to look for the next grouping of 4, and you have to go into the space that separates the 2 middle ones out, and so that's where you're going to go and put another 7. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, that's how easy that is. So once that 7's done, you look to the next petal, look to the group of the 4, it's in the middle space between the 2 middle ones, put in your next 7, and do that all the way around, and that will conclude you then round number 3, which I'll be back in just a moment. Once you come all the way back around, then you have your 7 here, so you're just going to join it to the top of the first chain 3. This color is now technically done. You'll notice that it's more flat, but it's not going to be flat after we get the next round done. So you're going to trim the yarn, and you're gonna pull through, and like I showed you before, just kind of turn it over and just kind of catch it into something else and allow it to tie onto itself, and therefore you can trim your yarn down as well. And just do that with any of the loose ends that you have, and you can get rid of those pretty easily. So let's move on to round number 4, which is gonna be a game changer, which will probably maybe excite you. It excited me, so it doesn't take much. So let's begin that next. So let's begin round number 4. This is where I screwed up when I was doing my tutorial prep work. In actual fact, I did all 12. My motifs were still pretty flat. I'm like, it doesn't look like that in the sample, and I'd realized that I had screwed up on the half double crochet that is pulling everything together. So watch what I do here. So I'm going to join it to the top of any of the first shell work, and we want to go into the back loop only. So if you go into both of the stitches, then that's not gonna work. This is the front loop, and then the other loop is the back. And so let's just join it with the standing single crochet because it looks nicer. So put it onto the hook and you're just gonna pull through, and you're going to pull through 2 like that. That's a standing single crochet. If you don't like that, then just join chain 1 and then do a single crochet, but it looks nicer if you do it that way. So there's going to be a total of 7 double crochets because there's 7 single crochets altogether because there's 7 double crochets. So we technically have 1. I need you to count. So going into the next back loop only, just kind of pull it out if you don't see it. It's easier to see in person, and you're going to single crochet in the back loop. So that's number 2, and I want 7 in a row. So going to the next back loop. This is 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. This is going to make that pop later. Here's the thing. We have to go all the way down and split between the 2 of these right all the way down. This is where I screwed up. So when I half double crochet, I want to keep it taut and tight in my hands, and I want to go down into the space, and I don't want to pull up any additional yarn. I want to keep it nice and solid. So you have, it's awkward, but you have to manipulate that hook to grab that without allowing more yarn to squeeze into this project, and you're going to pull through like that. So normally what I was doing is that I was pulling that loop up and it was making it much longer, and what happens is that you lose the pucker, so the whole shaping of the ball will change. So yarn over and pull through all 3 loops, and that's a half double crochet join, or sorry, that's a half double crochet stitch, and it has no flexibility to get itself all the way back to the top, and therefore this will naturally pucker out. So starting in the very next one, the hardest one is actually the chain 3 that is going, so I'll meet you there in a few moments, but just kind of peel it apart with your hands. If you don't see the first one, just kind of guess, and it's the back loop only. So you got that one like that. And how many is there? There's a total of 7. So that was 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and I've run out of double crochets and my counts are right. So let me show you again. So you're gonna do a half double crochet all the way down here. So going down and grab the yarn from behind and pull through, and don't pull up any slack. Just pick up that and finish it. It's a half double crochet join, or sorry, it's a half double crochet there, and because it's tight, this is going to naturally pucker out later. Okay, and then you start in the next back loop. The first one is hard to see, so if you have to guess, it's fine. Don't tell anybody I told you that though. Okay, so then just continue around, and I'm going to be, this is where I started and stopped before, so let me just do that with you. The chain 3 is hard to tell the first stitch, so you're just gonna have to guess. You just need to make sure you get the 7 in there. So you just gotta count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm on the last double crochet, half double crochet down in here. I have a bit of experience with this because I've already done my 12. So if I'm making it look easy, that's because I've been playing with it. So the first one, see, it's hard to tell where that first one is, but as long as you get 7 across, once the first one's in, then you can get to the second. So it's just 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. As long as you get your counts right, it's always gonna work. Okay, so finish this and I'll be back in just a moment. So as you finish this round here, this is round number 3, you got to make sure you have your 7 in there and your last stitch, and this is gonna pucker it like this. So just pull that loose end and it will pull it back into position, and that last one has to be a half double crochet that goes down. It's awkward, but it looks amazing. And then you're just going to slip stitch it to the beginning single crochet. Now just fasten this yarn off, so get rid of it. So we're now going to move on to round number 5, and round number 5 is going to finish the whole story. So weave in your ends and I'll be right back in a moment. So let's begin round number 5. Start with the slip knot on the hook. Right where we finished is where we want to start our new journey. So it's going to be on top of one of the back posts double crochet that start a piece. So it's one after a half double crochet that comes down. You want to use both stitches. So you're just going to use both loops, like both strands, or both of the loops that make a stitch. And you can do a standing single crochet there. Now I want to then single crochet the next 2 only. Use both of the strands for your stitches. The next one is the 4th stitch of the grouping of 7. This is going to be your first corner. So you're going to single crochet, chain 1 and single crochet. And now we have to think about that each one of the edges of these petals are a corner. So there's 5 corners, which is a pentagon, right? So starting right where we are, we're going to start with the next one and count the next 7 in a row going across. So we have 1, 2, 3, and the 4th one is always the half double crochet, if that helps you to know that. So that's 4, and then starting, so just coming across, and I'm on the half double crochet that comes down. You have to watch the one that has the joining. Okay, so after it's been joined, this is where we start and stop before. So it appears that there's 2 stitches here when there's only 1. So just watch that one. It's the only position in the circle that you have to worry about. So starting in the next one, so this would be number 5, 6 and 7. As long as you have 7 single crochets between the points, it works. So the next one is a corner. So it's single crochet, chain 1, 1 single crochet. Now we go down and each one of these petals are a corner. So we start again. So we're going to count 7. So we have 1, 2, 3. The 4th is always the top of the half double crochet. And then starting in the next stitch after, so we have 5, 6 and 7. And then that should take you to the top of this one here, which it does. So we have single crochet, chain 1, 1 single crochet. So it's only the side that has the join when we did the purple that can give the illusion that there's an extra stitch, when in actual fact it's just a slip stitch to seal the deal. So continuing around, you're gonna do the next 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4 is the top of the half double crochet, and then we have 5, 6 and 7. And so that means that the next one is going to be a corner. So the corner is going to be a single crochet, chain 1, 1 single crochet, and then again another 7. So we have 1, 2, 3, the 4 is on the top of the half double crochet, and then we have 5, 6 and 7. And so that means the next one, which is the top, is the corner. So single crochet, chain 1, 1 single crochet. When we come back all the way around, we only have 4 stitches left. So starting in the next one, so we have 1, 2, 3, and then the 4th one is the top of the half double crochet, and then you just slip stitch to where you started, and that will conclude then this whole shape. So you'll notice that it's bowling in like a cereal bowl. That's fine. And what you want to do is just pull it, and you can just pucker it back out. Okay, just sort of turn it so that the petals come on out like this, and therefore it'll be a bowling shape now with those facing out, and you'll see that it will look like this. And get rid of any loose ends, and you want to do all of your 12 motifs. You can see that it's sparkling a bit maybe, and we're going to talk about joining things together next. Once all of your motifs are done, you'll have a total of 12, and just use these layouts here that are available in the pattern. So you'll want to take the existing motifs that you have. So let's just say this was motif number 1. So motif number 2 will go all the way around. So there's a total of 5 of them because there's 5 sides. And then on the other half here it'll be motif 2, and then motif 1, which is this color configuration, will follow that one. So what I decided to do is that I just used spare yarn. You can use stitch markers if you wanted to. I put the first one down and then I began to attach them together. So let me show you my sample because I got to sew those together on with you. So it's gonna start off as being flat that you see here, and what's gonna happen is as I join them together and finally bring the last one in, it's going to cause it to bowl up like this. Okay, that you see. Almost kind of looks like a chandelier in so many ways. So what's gonna happen is that you just want to join, and when you join you want to go around the 3 motifs. So this one here, and it's the chain 1 of the corners, and I've just used a bow tie just to hold those together, and I did all of that. As I did that, so I joined this one, I joined the ends of these ones, so the chain 1s of those, so that I have those so they'll be able to go together. So you want to do your 2 pieces like that. So I did the first one already, and then I decided to whip stitch instead of doing a flat stitch join. The advantage of the flat stitch join is that it's really tight, and for myself though I found it really difficult to do, and when I run into a roadblock, instead of quitting I just improvise, and so what I decided to do is use a whip stitch join to put them together. So let me show you that sample. So this sample has been done as a whip stitch. So when I whip stitched it, I went all the way around the middle pentagon first, and I did one piece, so it's just a one strand. So I started here and I went all the way around, and when I got all the way back I just didn't stop. I still had yarn left over on my needle, and then I went down and I traced all the way to the end. So all I had to do then after that one was done is the other 4 pieces. So I had to do this one, this one, this one, and this one, and put it all together. So you can see that it still looks like it's buckling up, but it's not, because once it gets into its shape with the material on the inside, all of these things are going to pop out. So what's gonna happen is that you'll have these all put together, and you'll have your pentagon shapes all here. So the other one, all it's going to do once that one's sewn together is that it's gonna fill in the spaces like that and match. So it's just basically 2 halves. So what I'm going to do is I'll demonstrate just how I did the whip stitch, and then I'm gonna have you do that, and I will be right back in a moment. So let me show you how I whip stitch. So I'm going to use the same color that I did the outside edging with, and this is a flat stitch join as per the instruction if you wish to do that instead. So what I want to do is that I want to go into a chain 1 space for a corner of the pentagon, and right where that stitch marker is in place is the other chain 1 space like that, and I'm just going to pull that through, and I want to stop when I get close to this slip knot that I created. This is gonna help lock it into position, and I want to toss the straggler end to the inside of the ball. So just let it tuck and put the needle through the loop and pull through, and that's going to secure itself to it and put the loose end to the inside. So starting in the back loop only of this pentagon here, I want to grab the back loop, and if you don't see it, just guess, but you should be able to see it in person, and just guess and go in the back loop of that one. And what I'm going to do is whip stitch these into position. You have the same stitch counts in between each corner. So just pull that first one nice and tight, and then go to the next back loop on the one and the back loop on the other. And what I want to do is circle this whole center as we go all the way around. So as we pass over one pentagon, we're gonna jump to the other when we get there. So I will meet you here in just a moment, and as you're feeling more secure, you can pull your stitch markers out of where things are already put together, and I'll see you as we jump over on the first one right here. Now the stitch markers are in each one of the chain 1 corners. So I go right into the chain 1 corner on the 1, and I go into the chain 1 corner that it's been marked with the stitch marker. It's easier if you now pull the stitch marker out before you proceed to finish that. Pull that on out. And just know that because you're in the corner of this one, you're going to go into the corner of the one that you just pulled that stitch marker out, and you want to go into the exact same location of where that one was, because they're sharing the same point. So then I've just jumped from one motif to another, and I'm continuing on the back loops only, and I'm gonna do that all the way around. So I'll be back in just a moment after I get all of the circular done, and then I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna go down the one edge like so. So I'm coming all the way back around to where I had started, and I've been taking out my stitch markers as I've been going, so it's easy because I don't need them in there anymore. And so I have all the spaces that are left open because I still have to go down the side. So because I have more yarn still left on my needle, there's no point me finishing and restarting new yarn. So all I'm just going to do is trace down the back loops of each one of these going down to the end, and then once I'm at the end I'm going to fasten off, and then all I'm just going to do then, and I'm gonna rely on you, is that you're gonna start at the tops here and work your way all the way down. So you'll have to do that a total of 4 times. You'll find it goes a lot faster than you realize, and it's actually pretty neat, and you're gonna see your work coming together. And you'll want to do both halves so that they're together, and then we're gonna put both halves together after that is done. Sorry, it's almost lunchtime here. My stomach's acting up. So let's do that, and I'll be right back in a moment. So once I'm all the way down, I just turn it over to the other side, and all I'm just going to do is just have it tie onto the back side of this. People will never see this. So just have it tie itself into a knot on this side, and then you can just get rid of the excessive long yarn that's left over if you have it. Okay, and then that's done, and then you can continue then to attach the rest of the pieces that are left over. So now we need to match the 2 halves together. So with the right side facing out, the good side facing out of course, and you want to get one, and I would be using these left over that I had attaching the squares, and what I want to do is kind of match something. So maybe I want to pick like maybe the chain 1 space of a corner here, and then grab the opposite one, the other one that we have, and remember that has to be an indentation in, so it can't be a point. Okay, so it has to be an indentation in, and all I wanted to do is just take this so that I can match the 2 pieces together, and I want to just match just some points together so that it makes it easier for me to keep an eye on this, because worst things comes to worst, you start sewing and you have a wrong point together. So I'm just going to use a bow tie to do that. So I'm going to do just most of these points. So I'm not gonna do like, I'm just gonna do the top points of the base. So for example, I'm not gonna do here, I'm just gonna go there. And I'm just gonna do that most of the way around. And the reason for I'm saying the most is that I think that I just need to keep an opening so that I can at least put some stuffing in there. So I'm just gonna kind of follow it. So this is the indentation, this is the piece of the indentation. So essentially at the top here would just be that right there. And again, it's just to roughly hold it in a position until I get around with the sewing. Okay, so you can decide what you want to do. I'm just gonna do a few more and I will be right back, and then I'm gonna put some stuffing just to kind of start the shaping. So I have 3 points connected. So this is like the interior of a shell, like a clam. And what I want to do, it's easier just to keep that quite open as you begin to start stuffing this thing. So what I want to do is just be generous with my stuffing. It's gonna take a whack, meaning a lot. So I just want to continue to stuff, and once I get to what I think I need it to go, I'm going to then seal the rest of this together, and it'll have most of its stuffing in there. And then what I can do near the end when I'm doing the sewing, I can do the final stuffing to get exactly the texture and the shaping that I need to do that. I'll probably use almost a full bag the way it's going, and just continue to do that, and I'll be right back in a moment. So now I have it partially stuffed. You can see that it's not quite all the way there, and what I want to do is now start sewing the two pieces together. So by using the strategy of these stitch markers, it's kind of holding things, and as it gets more and more around, I want to make sure that as I'm continuing to go, I want to continually stuff this thing so that it will get to its ball shape. So I'm not going to panic too much, but it's easier to have it partially stuffed now because it's a lot of stuffing as it is. And what we're going to do then is to go out. So when you stuff this, you're going to want it so that these are literally going to pop out into a 3D motion. So you can pick any spot that you would like to start your journey, and we're going to be whip stitching along the edge. So I want to make sure that the points are matching each other as I go, and that's what I'm doing next. So what I'm just going to do, one side has the slip knot like I showed you before, the other side has the needle, and I want to match things up here. I still want to use the back loops if I can to match what I've already done. So I'm just going to put that through that slip knot, and then I'm going to toss the loose end into the ball itself inside. Okay, so I'm just going to toss that inside. So I'm just going to work strategy then, just going from back loop to back loop as I go, and I just want to make sure that every time I'm hitting a point on one, I'm hitting a point on the other. So if I have to adjust in any way just by moving things, then I will do that. But pretty much just straightforward, just joining it together. And as this comes more around, I want to make sure I'm adding more stuffing as I go. Once I'll probably go about halfway, and then I'll get really serious about stuffing this, and then really serious towards the end, of course. So just continue to whip stitch yourself around. If you want to do your flat stitch join, you can do the same thing. I just found that was a hard stitch for me to do. So you do what you need to do, and I'll do what I need to do, and we'll have a ball, literally. So I'm just continuing to stuff this ball. I don't have options once this thing is closed, so I got to make sure that each one of these flower petals that pop are actually literally popping. So if they're not popping, there's not enough stuffing inside. So I want to make sure it's nice and solid. I still have my yarn attached as we go, and so when the final comes together, when it pulls, everything should be intact. So I want to look, see, I can see that I have indentations here, so I need a little bit more stuffing, and what I would want to do is just put my hands in behind it and kind of push those out and continue to add more stuffing until it doesn't have a choice but to stick out. So do that. So I have a lot of stuffing in here, so what I want to do is continually close this, and I want to make sure that I can at least get my hand in there just in case I still need more stuffing. So it's pretty close to what I want, and I'm still continuing on the back loops only and pulling things together nice and tight. So I'll do that, and I'll be right back. I'll leave you another tip while I'm here. You want to make sure that the actual fiber fill is not interfering with your stuff. So just use your fingers and use a gapping space, because you can accidentally trap this fiber fill into the sewing itself, and it's kind of harder to get rid of, and it's easier if you just create a space with your fingers so that it doesn't pull through as part of the work. So now I have the final section to go. Am I happy with it? Yes or no. I can shape stuff. I don't think I want to put any more in here. It's actually pretty solid. And once I get this done, but now's the time to decide if you want to add more. Now's the time to get your little hands in there and then seal the deal. So just continue to seal, and I'll show you how to weave in your ends at the end. So let's seal the deal on this thing. I'm gonna show you another technique after I'm done this. Just what I would do if you weren't watching Selma's. I'll show you what I'm gonna do. I just want to make sure that each one of these petals pop properly out, and I'm just coming to my last stitch here. So once I'm happy with this is the last stitch. I want to make sure it does tie onto itself, and then what I'm going to do is just drag it up underneath the stitch work and just have it pop out somewhere else, and then go back in through a slightly different path through something and back over, and then a slightly different path one more time, and that'll help seal that in. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, if you weren't watching me, and I would do this at home, so I'll show you. So if any of these petals did not pop out like you're hoping that they would, and I feel like the ball is really full, I'm just gonna take my crochet hook that I've been using and just kind of pull on it a little bit. When the stuffing relaxes a little bit, it'll naturally stay puffed out. So if you just help it, any ones that didn't puff out to what you want, you'll find that it will probably be in your best interest. And then you can just let it settle. You can squish it too if you want to, and that's something that you can decide for yourself. And this is a pretty cool project. So this is the floral ball. My ball is much bigger. I'm a looser crocheter when it comes to using Bernat blanket in certain sizes of hooks, and so this is one of those ones. So my ball, it's massive, but I don't really know what it is, and that's what our journey is today. So hopefully you had a good day, and we'll see you again. And this has been a great way to spend a Sunday afternoon here at the studio, and it's April 2022. We'll see you again real soon. Bye bye.